Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Talk This Way podcast. I am your host, Matt Bishop. We have a very special guest today. This is pretty cool for me. Somebody that I grew up watching and, sitting here on the other end of things, am trying to be like a little bit, I must admit. He was the host of the legendary Headbangers Ball on MTV and a slew of other things. He's got a new live show on the road coming up soon. Ladies and gentlemen, Riki Rachtman. The legendary Riki Rachtman. What's going on, man?
It's funny. I've been doing a lot of interviews about this show, and every time I hear somebody say he's going on the road and he's got this show, I get a kick out of hearing it every single time. It's just so cool. I mean, maybe after I've done 20 shows, I'll be like, yeah, whatever. But right now, I just think it's so cool. I'm so excited.
Yeah, man. I think everybody is. It's real. It's a different thing. And, it's centered around a time, when rock and roll was king. And, not to say that, it isn't anymore or it's going away, but I think the landscape's a little bit different. And, some of the stories that folks are going to hear, are really from the heyday of some of the most iconic, artists and moments in rock history, really.
I mean, what you said is right. I mean, rock and roll didn't go anywhere. Rock and roll is still great. Rock and roll is still awesome. There's still great new bands. But what isn't the same is the lifestyle. And it's not just because I'm older and maybe I don't know about the lifestyle as much as I did. The reason is I know that, back in the day, and that sounds like such an antique to say that, but we had our rock and roll grocery store. We had our rock and roll coffee shop. We had our rock and roll post office. I mean, there were places in our little, scene that where everybody was that you couldn't go to the laundromat without seeing this guy in that band. And you went out all the time. And it wasn't out, a show's in town in 2 weeks. Let's go. It's like we were going out several nights a week. And sometimes we didn't even know who was playing, but we always had places to go where we would see the same people in our key circle. And the people in our key circle ended up becoming the biggest rock and roll bands in the world, which is pretty weird when you're hanging out with somebody and then the songs that they've recorded have become like the biggest rock anthems in the world, and that's the way it always has been with me and Guns N' Roses. It's still surreal for me that everybody, no matter what age, can look at Slash and know that that's Slash. Like, that was just my buddy Slash. It's awesome.
Yeah, man. It was, it's something that, somebody like me and is reading about in the history books, I just missed it. And it really was just right place, right time, I think, for a lot of people. I'm a photographer and I shoot, shows for our publication. And, I look at somebody like Ross Halfin, who is so iconic, in the photography world and in rock and metal. And this takes zero away from him. Super talented guy. He was right place, right time, man. It was just unbelievable. He's going to see these bands at clubs and taking pictures on film, and all of a sudden selling out arenas everywhere.
I mean, we all were. I mean, I'm the biggest example of right place, right time. But it's like the photographers, you said, the photographers, like those people, were part of our scene, that you would see the Mark Weiss, the Niels Lozauer, the Robert Johns, the Gene Kirklands. They would just be Glenn LaFerman. They would just be people that were at the clubs shooting all of everybody. And then everything just got so big. I mean, there was a plethora of ways you could arise from that scene. And I mean, look at me. I made a career out of running a rock and roll dance club, that I'm still milking it today. So it was a magical time, which sounds like such a cliche thing to say, but it was an amazing time. And it was some extreme highs and some extreme lows, and we lost people, and all these books that, I look at, shelves of books of written about the 80s and 90s, written by mostly people that were never there or weren't participants. I was not a journalist. I was not a writer. I was there when everything happened. So in my show, I talk about my life experiences in all of this. And of course, in my show, One Foot in the Gutter, I definitely give people what they want to hear. What was it like when Nirvana was on Headbangers Ball? What was it really like at the water park with Alice in Chains? What was the truth between you and Dave Mustaine? But then there's all the stories that happened at the Cat House, like, the whole Vince and Axl feud, the whole Axl chasing David Bowie down the street, saying he was going to kill him. All these things that happened, like right here to me. I was part of all these things. So I tell all these things, and it's not just, yes, and I call some people out. There were some people that did me very wrong back in the day, and I'm saying names, and it's also that stories, but there's stories of my life that people don't know. When I was, the biggest, I'm sorry, my email, let me just turn that off right now.
It's all good, man. We're all there. We've all been there.
There's also I had a very successful talk radio career in Los Angeles that was like, it was like Howard Stern in the morning, Riki Rachtman in the afternoons. And, I hit a real low in my life where I ended up going to the radio station and beating up a DJ and going to jail and losing everything. And I talk about those things in the show as well. And, I've had people that told me, like, they got, oh yeah, I can't believe you said this about Molly or this about that, but also were surprised that there's parts of it that are sort of inspirational, which is so flattering. I mean, the main purpose, if somebody said, like, what are you trying to, what do you hope people get from going to your show? I just hope they have fun. I mean, that's what it is. The beauty of rock and roll in the 80s and 90s is we were just trying to have fun. We really were just there to have fun and take advantage of it. And I was lucky enough to be a participant in much of that. And I like telling those stories, but there's a lot of stories that happened after that. And I talk about that too.
Mm-hmm. You talk about, talking about, like the lows and stuff, and, some of, the things, feuds and whatnot. Is it difficult, to talk about those things? Like, does it make your heart hurt a little bit? Because I know deep down, first and foremost, you're an ambassador of the genre, and I think that's kind of what you've dedicated, a lot of yourself to, for your whole career. And is it hard to talk about, some of the uglier things, that happen?
I don't know if it's definitely hard. I mean, I said some things up there that my wife is like, really? You're going to tell that? I'm like, yeah, because I was one that when I was on MTV, you talk about being, whether I wanted to or not, being the face of that genre.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't in a band. That's not what I asked to do. I didn't ask to be the face of this genre, and people had opinions about me. And I'm the first one to say that, I have still to this day have my fair share of haters, but it's also very humorous that the things that people hate me for, most of them are not true. They don't know what it's really like. And I'm very open about that stuff. Here's a guy that gets these, people that are really pissed off that I'm not out there waving the flag for bands that I necessarily wasn't into. Some of the softer, more, I don't even know how to say it without throwing them under a bus, bands. And they're saying, well, how come you're not out there promoting, the whatever bands, Slaughter or stuff like that? And I was like, well, that's not really my scene. So then I'm going to, Hatebreed show, and then they're saying, well, you're not really from this scene, you're from that. I'm like, none of you even know what the hell, oh, Dave Mustaine hated you. Dave Mustaine Dave Mustaine hated me so much. Why did he play my birthday party? Why was he always on the show? Why was he playing the Cat House? The same thing, people don't know the true story, and I like to share my view on this thing. I mean, especially these days, we live in this world that people will spend a lot of time to go out of their way to tell someone that they don't like them. It's like, if there's something that I don't like, it's not in my life. I don't go to the grocery store, go down the aisles, go to the condiments section, pick up a mayonnaise jar to say, I hate mayonnaise. I just don't go by where mayonnaise are, and I don't know where that came from. But there's people are so ready to do that stuff instead of compliment, when throwing so much negativity out there really doesn't do anything. I spend more time these days making sure that I'm not talking shit about somebody that I don't like, because it really doesn't get you anywhere. There's a lot of bands that I don't like, but putting it out there doesn't get anywhere. If there's something that a band puts out that I'm not a fan of, I'm just not going to mention it, you know? And instead, if there's something that I like and I put that out there, that gets people a lot further, you know? But you know, the funniest thing is when people would say like, oh, dude, oh, those has-beens. I'm like, dude, you never did anything. And this person did something great for several years and you're mocking them when you did nothing forever.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, we live in a really strange environment, and I like to talk about that stuff too. But, you know, it's not all, you know, I hope that people get, I hope they laugh. I hope they find stuff that's funny. And I know that there's some stuff that I share that didn't get out in the press that's very, very humiliating, but I don't mind sharing those things. And also I do, like, you know, my show, there's actually a set where we take you into my room in the 70s as I'm discovering certain vinyl records and the impact that they made on me. Like, you know, the first heavy metal record, when I heard it, what this meant to me. And I hope that people feel like that. Like I'm already finding things for the set. Like, here's my light bright, you know,
Oh man.
all these crazy things that I'm putting in, instead of me just going up there and going, you know, in 1989, when Guns N' Roses did this, it's like, no, this is this. And I hope to take people back from the early 70s all the way until today. And and the interesting thing is like I know what Henry Rollins does. And Henry Rollins does these spoken word shows, and he's phenomenal at it. But when I say I'm doing spoken word, I was surprised how many people don't even know what spoken word is.
Mm-hmm.
And also, you know, what I'm doing is it's a live speaking engagement, and I'm storytelling. I'm telling stories that are all true. And, you know, I hope to bring a little multimedia in it with videos and photos and a set that looks like my room in the 70s or 80s and just, you know, all this stuff. So I hope when people come here that it's, you know, we're going to certain clubs that are like rock, you know, Machine Shop and King of Clubs. Those are like rock bars, you know, and they're putting beats in there for those shows. You know, I've also got shows at theaters like Sellersville Theater. And
That's a great spot. Yeah, I'll be at that one.
oh, you'll be at the Sellersville one.
Oh yeah.
I'm really excited about that show, because that show, like, I'm looking at pictures of it. I'm like, okay, this place is beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, have you been there?
I haven't, but I've only seen pictures. I've always tried to get to a show out there. It's never worked in my schedule, but there's been a lot of cool stuff. John 5 was recently there, like in the last year or so, doing some solo stuff. Yeah, they get some really cool stuff. A lot of classic rock goes there.
Yeah,
it's a cool spot.
But it's a proper theater.
Oh yeah.
You know, so for me to be on stage in this proper theater, you know, that's got a lot of history in it. I mean, that place has been around, I think, since the 1800s. And, you know, that's our last show. And, you know, I'm very, very excited about that. And to be, you know, to go from the Sellersville Theater and be at the Machine Shop in Flint, Michigan. I mean, all these different things. And, you know, the Winchester Music Tavern and the Rec Room. And it's all interesting because they're all so different. Some are just hardcore rock bars, and some, like Sellersville, are theaters. And this is what I want to do. Like, when I get done with Sellersville, I hope that I'm like, you know what? Okay, I'm ready to add 20 more shows. I want to do this because I've only done one show, but the feeling that I got when I did that show was unlike anything I've ever done before. You know, I'm more proud of this show, and it's fun. It's really fun, and it's exciting. And as we are 1 week away from the first show, it's also very nerve-wracking. You know, my idea is like, we're going to get in this tour bus and we're going to do, it's like, oh, I can't afford a tour bus. We're going to get in this passenger van. And then yesterday we rented a minivan, you know, like, we're piling in a minivan. My wife is the tour manager. We've got our friends doing, you know, T-shirts and doing the video, and we don't know how to do these things, but we're just going out and doing them. And at this age, and I'm old, so to go do these things and to actually say I'm going on tour at this age is so cool for me, because that's something I saw all my friends do my whole life. And I always would sit there, you know. I remember we had a Christmas party at Nikki Sixx's house, dropping a name. And this was right after Nikki Sixx OD'd. He had a little Christmas party at his house. I think there were probably 7 people there. But among myself and Stephen Piercy and Fred Corey from Cinderella and Steven Adler from Guns N' Roses, I mean, I was like the guy like, wow, I'm like not in a band. This was way on TV. And hearing these guys tell these road stories, and I was just like sitting here with my eyes open, like, oh my God, that would be the most fun thing in the world. I wish I could do something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm kind of doing it, I'm doing smaller venues and I hope people buy tickets. I don't know how tickets sell. What if I go to a show and there's only 20 people there? Well, I'm going to make it a damn good show because those 20 people came to hear stories. Mm-hmm. I don't know because I don't know how it's going to go. But I'm really excited.
That's awesome. And it's good to know that there could be more. When I saw the list, obviously it's a very select few dates, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of folks, all over saying, "Oh, can we get one? Let's go." So yeah, that's pretty cool.
The only show I've done was in Charlotte, North Carolina, and it was it was around 500 people there, and it was packed, and it was a big theater, big neighborhood theater, and I was looking at all these people. I'm like, and it was weird, like, oh, these people aren't here to see what band's coming; they're here to see me, and it was very surreal and very so flattering. But I had such a good time, and I was like, I would love to do this. And people flew in. So people are all like, all right, when are you coming to the West Coast? When are you coming here? And I don't know. There is talk about a whole bunch of shows in spring, but I don't know yet. So we'll see. But, if I do, I know I probably won't be coming back to Ohio or Pennsylvania or stuff like that. So these will be the ones to go to. If you're in Philly and it's 40 minutes away, do the 40-minute drive. I'm not coming back to Philadelphia. I'm coming to Sellersville, and I don't know what's going to go on. But in a perfect world, I'd love to see like an itinerary with all these dates and stuff like that. Like we made a tour shirt. We made a tour
shirt,
like the shows on the back, and I'm just like looking at it, and I'm just like, this is so surreal and so cool to see these shirts with my tour and my name on it, and it's a bummer. I have this thing. I can't wear anything that has my name on it. And with like Bret Michaels will wear shirts with his face on it. Okay. But if I have a Cat House shirt that says Cat House, I'll wear it. But if it says Riki Rachtman's Cat House, I won't wear it. I just don't want to wear stuff with my name. And I made the coolest tour shirt, but I'm not going to wear it because it's got my name on it.
I hear you, man. I don't know if I could either, but yeah, I've seen a lot of bands, like Bret in particular. I just, shot them over the summer on the stadium tour, and he was, had this Poison shirt. It's all cut and ripped up, but it's like, it's you, dude.
And that's not throwing shade on Bret Michaels.
No, absolutely not.
Bret is such a good promoter.
He's the coolest dude
at what he does. And but like I could not, like cathousehollywood.com has a shirt that was a Faster Pussycat Cat House shirt. And there's a picture of me and Tammy on it. And it's this cool vintage shirt. And I love that shirt. But I would never wear that shirt. We went to go see Wasp a couple nights ago. And one of my buddies wore a Headbangers Boss shirt. And I was like, dude, you got to wear Headbangers. Like I was weird.
It's very appropriate. But on the other hand, it's like, dude, I'm standing right next to you. Like, what are you doing? Like, it's almost like that. You might as well wear that shirt that says like, I'm with him or something like, you know what I mean? Yeah.
And my wife loves wearing cat because we make great apparel, and she loves wearing Cat House stuff. And there's a new shirt that we just made that is my favorite shirt. That it's this guy Thomas Estrada who does stuff he's licensed artist for Ratfink and stuff like this, and he did like a Ratfink drawing of me on my chopper, and it looks like me, and it's got my bike, and it's got my tattoos and my high top Air Jordans. But I can't ever wear that shirt, and I love it. So, but yeah, doing this stuff with the tour, it's all very surreal because it's me. It's not, my club that has Guns N' Roses playing or me interviewing Iron Maiden. It's my show, So, I take it very personal, and it's very flattering that people go to the show. That people have bought tickets in advance. That's really cool.
Yeah, I echo that sentiment, man. I think, it is really neat to see, somebody um who has been talking to bands, for so long, bands that people, millions of people have bought in tickets to go see, and now those people are buying tickets to go see you tell
Right.
all the stories. And, I think it's overdue, and I'm happy for you, man. It's really cool.
Thank you very much. It's so exciting because it is a lot of, I mean, 80% of it is rock stuff, but a lot of it is personal stuff and
Mhm.
struggles. You know, I've lost a lot of friends that people know very well. And it was as much as it was great, and it was, I mean, when they say like sex, drugs, rock and roll, it was sex, drugs, rock and roll. It really, really was. Those times will never come back. You could not duplicate it. Now we live in this culture. I'll be quick about this, but back then the cat house was notorious for the women that would go to the cat house because the way that they would dress and the attire was very provocative and sleazy and downright and this, and people said like, oh well, you couldn't have that now because all those women were so trashy. And the truth is, the women weren't all trashy there. The thing is, it was a place that you could go and play. Like a woman that was in charge of a business that had 50 employees work under her could go there and dress sleazy and be this crazy rock chick for a night and then maybe go home and do a regular job and stuff like that. It was not demeaning, it was not degrading. It was just this crazy wild lifestyle that we all got to play. It'd be like going to a Wild West night and dressing up like cowboys. We were all these, whatever, you could be whatever you want. And if anything, the cat house was by far the most inclusive. I mean, every type of person in the world was there, and nobody cared. Nobody really cared. I mean, we're talking about the 80s and 90s, and if there was trans there, which there were, nobody cared. It was all about having fun. It didn't matter, for people to think it was this just typical heterosexual white male. But yeah, there was a lot, but it really, we didn't care. You could do whatever you wanted at the cat house. I mean, when the cat house opened, in our first couple of weeks, it was just Axl Rose on the dance floor dancing by himself, just dancing, listening to David Bowie, and girls would come up and dance with him, and he would turn the other way and not even look at him. And it was just like, it was just this crazy place that we all had that was our safe haven.
Yeah, and I think, and you kind of segued into something I've been like wondering, like kind of what your thoughts are on how the rock landscape has changed since that period in time. And I think a lot of it is media. I mean, if the cat house was open today, you know, TMZ's outside every night. And then, nobody wants to go because, like you said, it was a place where people could go and just hang out, be themselves. Okay, get a little crazy, sure. But yeah, they were just doing their thing and nobody knew about it. And I think that's why you heard of so many like crazy stories, like, that Motley Crue Ozzy tour is like got a novel of stories from it. People were just doing their thing and nobody really, it wasn't like a big deal. But nowadays it's like the front page on TMZ, somebody sneezed and it's like, oh my God. And that's why everybody is just kind of like, all right, we're going on tour. That's it. Nothing else. I also think it's become more of a business. And now, it wasn't a business back then. It was just rock and roll. And then the business just happened. Like you just put out a record, boom. The fans came, millions of dollars, cool, on to the next album cycle. But nowadays it's all, oh, we got to like do Facebook posts and we got to, do all the marketing. And like, it's all so like regimented. And yeah, I don't know. And I think people are taking care of themselves more too, which is probably the biggest positive. I go to festivals nowadays. These bands roll up, and out of the trailer, they hang like a heavy bag. They're doing boxing. They're working out like backstage at the festival. And I think, like you said, we've lost a lot of people. And I think people have noticed that over the last 20 years. And, that whole rock and roll lifestyle. I mean, it's cool, but it makes for some cool stories, but it can get you. And that, better than anyone. And I think people are just taking better care of themselves, and it doesn't make for great stories, but they're going to be here for a while and they're going to make a lot more records. So,
But it was
health
more
and
fun the other
well-being
way.
is important. What was that?
But it was more fun the other way. I
Oh
mean,
yeah, I'm not saying
I wouldn't change anything. And what you say is true. The Cat House was famous for having this strict rule, which was my rule, that no cameras were allowed in the Cat House, which ended up biting me in the ass, because it would have been nice to have the picture of Robert Plant sitting up at the bar, or Bowie in the DJ booth, or Cher and Michelle Pfeiffer taking their sweaters off, spinning them around in the DJ booth. Those stories would have been great to have as photos. But because I didn't allow cameras there, that's why I think that stuff was accepted. If there was, it wouldn't have been the same. I hear stories, just the other day I was watching that documentary on Chris Holmes from Wasp, and and Chris is talking about how he met Lita Ford and picked up on Lita Ford at the Cat House. I was like, oh, I didn't know that. It's like I'm hearing stories.
You're still finding out stuff.
All the stuff that happens at my club, and it's awesome, but it would never be the same, and everybody says, why don't you open up a Cat House? If I ever opened up a Cat House, it would be, a 20 by 20 bar that plays good music with stuff on the walls, with no cover charge, no bands, because it's never going to be like it was, because it wasn't, yes, we had the greatest bands in the world, every one of them played the Cat House, but it wasn't really the bands that made it famous. It was the atmosphere. What happened when you walk inside the club. And because the club was created by two young guys that barely rolled enough to drink, myself and Tammy, that's in Faster Pussycat. Tammy and I did not start the Cat House thinking 30 years later, I'm going to have two offices that are selling apparel worldwide, and I'll be talking about it's such a cliche, and it's been said a million times by both Tammy and myself. We opened the place to get free drinks and meet girls. And that was, and because that was why,
fair enough,
because that's why we opened the club. That was the feeling everybody got when they were inside. And as everybody started focusing on their bands and everybody's getting record deals, and I sobered up, I became obsessed with, okay, what can I do to really make sure the Cat House is a part of history, not knowing that it really would become. I mean, in 2022, we sold more Cat House shirts than we had in the previous years. And you can't go to many rock shows without seeing Cat House shirts, and they are never available in any stores except for me. So every time I go to a club anywhere, and I see a band play and I see Cat House shirts, that's like, I look at it and I was like, wow, like people remember that era or wish they were part of it, or, just wearing that shirt says like, yeah, I know a little bit about that scene, because I'm so proud of the legacy that club had. I'm more proud of the legacy the Cat House has than I am of what Headbangers Ball legacy, because the Cat House was created by me. The Headbangers Ball, I was just the host of a show.
Makes sense, man. Well, hey, it was a pleasure chatting with you, brother. I'm going to let you go, but One Foot in the Gutter, ladies and gentlemen, the new one-man show from the one and only Riki Rachtman is coming to a very few select cities. Ticket link is right down there. Just scroll down, and hopefully some more in 2023. We'll see how this goes. And I'll see you at the Sellersville Theater, man.
I can't wait. So where do we eat when we're in Sellersville? What do we do in Sellersville?
I don't know. I'll do whatever. Let's hang.
You got it. We'll see you in Sellersville.
I'm bringing my camera. I'm taking some pictures. I'm bringing my camera. I know that.
Okay.
So we're going to have some pictures from this last one at least.
Yes.
All right, brother. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And we'll see you soon. Rock on.